torment defences, and fortunately for me, I didn't get to play against him because I was playing with him, and I would not like to have had to play against him because he was a very strong and very difficult opponent to play against.
Another of that early 80s Cup-winning side was Tony Galvin, a player who was spotted by the great man Bill Nicholson whilst playing at lowly Goole Town.
Well, there've been quite a few sort of stories in the newspapers that clubs have been watching me, and then a scout in that area for Tottenham had alerted Tottenham, so then I was told that they were going to come along to watch this particular game, and it would be Bill. But I thought, actually, when the game had finished, that he probably hadn't turned up.
He was watching, and it wasn't long before Tony was making his way to White Hart Lane.
Well, I was at university at the time, so obviously I had no money. You know, I was poor, like all students are. No change there, and just it was a completely different world. Obviously, coming to a club that was actually in the second division in those days. If we're allowed to say second division, it's confusing now. But they were on the sort of throes of coming back up into the first division. And so it was completely different, training full time, you know, top quality players. It was a different world, but initially I was part-time. I finished my university course off and then trained here part-time, you know, sort of as and when I could, and played in the reserves.
He came down as a student from Goole Town, scruffy as hell, but yeah, we soon sorted him out. You know, he took to the club like a duck to water, really. A great servant for the club. You know, and also you had people like Steve Perman, Ray Clements, Ozzy Ardiles, Glenn Oddle, Ricky Grelia, Archibald Crooks. You know, it was a great time to be around the club because you know, we had a good team at that time.
A good team that would win 2 FA Cups and the UEFA Cup in 1984.
The favourite memory for Tottenham was the UEFA Cup final, without a doubt, mainly because we actually won it here in front of our own fans. Obviously it went to the wire, penalties. But that was by far and away my favourite memory of Tottenham, you know, to see the crowd so happy, pleased, ecstatic at the end of the game. It was a wonderful feeling, and never bettered really when I played football.
Ralph Coates signed as the star from a relegated Burnley side in 1971 for a record transfer fee involving only money.
I mean, he was a good player. He contributed a lot to Tottenham, skill and effort combined.
He wasn't a major star, but he had great energy, and you could play him on either flank. Great energy, great enthusiasm and pace, and strong. And no, he was a very useful club player.
Whilst he did give great service to the club, playing nearly 250 games, he'll be remembered for 1 game and 1 goal.
And if you're going to score a good goal, the best goal of your career, then try and score it at Wembley is not a bad idea.
It's funny, football, it's a life of up and downs. And I started the day disappointed when Bill said, I'm making you sub. I had a slight injury and he wasn't going to risk me, and he put me sub. And so I made my mind up that I'd be watching the game for at least, it's a silly situation. You're hoping you get on, but you don't want to get on because you know the team probably be struggling. Unfortunately, John Pratt got injured after 15 minutes, which was very, very sad because he's a mate of mine. And then I came on a sub, and how things changed in the course of a few hours, and I scored the winning goal. Even to this day, people stop me in the supermarkets and tap me on the shoulder and said, that was a great goal, you know, well done, thank you very much for what you've, you know, it's tremendous, and they still remember it.
And again Mike England's going forward, again a lower one, Chivers with a back heel. Now Mike England hoping to get in, Coates hoping to blast it in, and Coates has done it! Ralph Coates! A beautiful shot by Coates!
And despite the Barnetts of Hoddle, Waddle and Jennings, it's Ralph that will go down in Spurs legend as the man with the oddest haircut.
I have a certain sympathy for Ralph Coates because all of us who are, to put it in the modern vernacular, follically challenged, have that moment when they have to decide, can we stop coming it across? Bobby Charlton went through it, I went through it, probably not that much notice compared with Bobby, I'm sure, and Ralph Coates was probably the extreme example, because actually the piece that he had was thicker than Bobby's and mine. It was much more sort of wispy hair we had. He had quite strong hair. So, you know, it was a question of whether he was on BBC One, BBC Two or ITV, where the aerial was, you know.
It was ironic that I had to stick with it because people recognised me because of the hair, you know. And the winning goal at Wembley, I got an advantage because it was a swirling wind, and it was a long throw from Martin Chivers and flicked on by Martin Peters. And it was a swirling wind, and it was because of my hair was falling from right to left, and I knew where the wind was going, so I was a step ahead.
When a football fan is asked to remember Ray Clemence, more often than not it would be for his achievements with Liverpool, which is a fair assessment. But despite a long and successful career with the Reds, he went on to forge a silver-lined 6-year career at Spurs as well.
I remember when Ray Clemence was signed by Spurs, I mean, nobody doubted Ray Clemence's ability. He obviously felt that the time was to move on for whatever reason, after being hugely successful at Liverpool. And I must say, I never really thought that he could possibly build a second career of the quality that he did.
His communications with his defence was absolutely, I think, crucial to the way that I settled in here at Tottenham. Having a keeper like Ray there, he'd done it all in the game. You know, had a great respect from everybody. Magnificent goalkeeper, but even when we were on the attack, you know, Ray was still barking instructions, still keeping players on their toes. Just the way that he basically handled his defence, the way that he looked after his defence, the way that he, you know, commanded his defence.
We know an excellent goalkeeper, and he and Shilton were almost alternating at one time in the England goal. And he was this marvellous story, wasn't there, that he was on the beaches as a deck chair attendant at one time before he signed for his local club, and then he found his way to Liverpool and asserted himself as a very commanding goalkeeper, agile, commanding, sometimes quite ruthless. He'd come out and clobber a player coming through. I remember once he did that for England. In those days, he didn't get sent off for that.
Tottenham defenders have been lucky over the years. They could look back and say, OK, I made a mistake, but he'll get me out of it. And Ray Clemence joined that line all right. And he joined the ranks of great Tottenham goalkeepers. You could argue that he's the last of the ranks. There hasn't been a goalkeeper to match him since. But he's the last of the long line that, you know, for me, started with Ditchburn and then went on through Bill Brown and the great Pat Jennings.
A familiar face to the small screen is Garth Crooks, the man of the 100-word question fame on Match of the Day. But back in his playing days, he forged a fantastic partnership in the early 80s up front with Steve Archibald.
Steve and Garth had a couple of seasons of delight as a partnership, both scoring goals, both reading each other's abilities.
Crooksy was sharp off, you know, the 5 yards. You know, so it was a good compliment with Crooksy and Steve. So it worked out well.
And it was an outstanding partnership. I was lucky enough to commentate on many matches where those two really played well together. And they were contrasting characters, but it was a good time for those two. And I think they were integral.
Despite signing for Spurs in his early 20s, Garth had already plied his trade in nearly 150 games for his previous club, Stoke City. And it was clear that his now famous persistence and, dare we say, annoying streak as a broadcaster was there from his playing career.
The story was, wasn't it, that he drove the Stoke City manager mad when he was a little boy by banging a ball against the wall underneath his office until last he signed it.
I think it was Garth who once said that Steve and I were only loaned the ball. Because we had such midfield players of Glenn Hoddle, Ozzy Ardiles, Ricky Villa, and when they loaned us the ball, it was in the belief that we were to give it back.
Indeed, even during his career, he was flexing his muscles as a broadcaster during spells on the sidelines with injury.
Independent Radio News, it's 3 minutes past 7.
And this is London Tonight with me, Sarah Ward. The studio is absolutely packed with people. Garth Crooks, Spurs striker, will be talking about the soccer events over the weekend. And as I said, Garth is raring to go because he's fit again and he's going to be playing very soon indeed.
It's going to be a very, very good game, a good game for the fans to watch, a very tight game, but of course I'm going to take Spurs to win.
You've got to say that, haven't you?